like, you know what else apparently reduces gray matter is caffeine.
Really?
Yeah.
I have to drink a cup a day, otherwise I get headaches.
Oh.
You have to drink a cup a day, or else you get headaches.
Yeah, like coffee.
But is that...
You're allowed to have caffeine while you're pregnant.
No, I know, but is it is that just like a pregnancy symptom? Or was it like that before?
I drank, before I got pregnant, I would be able to drink 2 or 3 cups of coffee in the morning because I'd be super tired. And then I tried to cut out caffeine when I found out that I was pregnant, and then I kept on getting headaches. So my doctor's like, "Are you a caffeine drinker?" And I was like, "I was." And he's like, "Drink coffee." So, yeah.
You could try matcha or something, too. Do you not like it? Matcha? You don't like matcha?
It's not my thing.
I love matcha. I feel like people either love matcha or they hate it, though.
Tastes like grass.
That's what my mom says, that it tastes like grass. What about you, Megan? Do you like matcha?
I like matcha. Most things I drink, though, people think taste like grass, including herbal teas and things I make.
Like cilantro. Ugh, cannot do it.
Oh yeah.
Some people say it tastes like soap. I don't taste soap. I just taste dirt.
It's certainly. I feel like cilantro has to it has to be in it has a place, you know. I feel like some people. Well, no, some people I feel like use herbs willy nilly and they put whatever and whatever and it doesn't taste good. But yeah, I feel like some dishes cilantro taste really good and
Mexican food.
Yeah, Mexican food
and Asian food. Yeah.
If I can't taste it,
but it's very polarizing. Very
polarizing. If you want to start a controversy, talk about cilantro or matcha or something. Or pineapple on pizza is probably the...
I like that.
I like that too. I don't
too.
You like pineapple on pizza? I like pineapple... Yeah, I like it.
Maybe
I don't...
Pineapple and a pepper or something, banana pepper. I like sweet.
It's sweet savory sort of combination,
Hawaiian
right?
with the bacon bits and the red onion and that's good.
Yeah, but some people I think it's just weird.
Maybe it's an acquired thing because I never used to. When I had pizza, it was never Hawaiian, and now it's always.
Yeah.
I always get pineapple on my pizza.
Yeah,
it's a little sweet crunch thing. I don't know. It's a texture thing, maybe. And
yeah.
I don't know.
Pineapple on pizza. I should do a poll or something on the story. Yeah
Ask
or nay?
the crowd.
Ask the crowd.
Should see what zodiac sign most doesn't like pineapple on their pizza.
Capricorn.
Yeah, or no. Probably Capricorn, honestly, wouldn't like pineapple on pizza. They'd be like, that makes no sense. You can't do that. How dare you? Okay, so October, first I want to say October is interesting because it's basically the start of Scorpio season in October. And it's funny because I've been seeing posts on my timeline where people talk about it's the fall and that means there's a canon event that's going to happen, something really dramatic is going to happen in your life. People are always talking about it's fall and something's gonna happen, right?
Let's hope it's not early labor.
But I think that's very characteristic of Scorpio season. We're still in Libra season right now, but Scorpio season is creeping up on us, and it's that. I think it's the 22nd. Of October is Scorpio season, which I'll talk about more later, but I just think it's interesting because it's that's also just such a Scorpio thing is there's crisis or there is disaster and then you have to grow from it sort of thing.
God.
You know? Yeah. So,
it doesn't have to be disastress though.
It could be something else. It's just a big event. Generally, it could be
just
good or
keep
bad.
positive.
Yeah, positive thoughts. Well, I mean, having a baby though is that's also a very transformative thing too, right? Because it's the whole process of growing
we don't want
something.
her to come too early.
Yeah, the whole process of growing something though, and also having something new come into your life, right? It's kind of just the process of creation. That's a naturally transformative process. So that's kind of something to keep in mind as the fall months come up. But it's eclipse season. I'm sure like everyone's heard, you know, stuff about the eclipses. We recently got a new moon too, or like, no, I think that's happening tomorrow actually. There's like another moon that's going to be like coming into the orbit of Earth, and it's going to be here for like a couple of months, I believe. So that's something interesting. I don't know if you'll be able to see. I don't think you can see it though. So it's like
a different moon.
The moon. It's like another moon. We're getting a second moon basically. So that's interesting. So people might be feeling it's like a double moon. So it's like the moon represents, you know, your emotions, your like the domestic sphere, unconscious desires, all that stuff. So getting another moon might create more of that, you know what I mean? Like more family stuff, more emphasis on the household, that sort of stuff might come up. But yeah, it'll be a very brief thing, hopefully. It's getting caught in our orbit and then it's like flying away. So, you know, that'll be interesting. But yeah, it's eclipse season. There was a lunar eclipse that happened like a couple weeks ago in the sign of Pisces. And so a lunar eclipse is basically where the moon gets eclipsed by the Earth. So it's basically like in the Earth's shadow, right? So essentially it happens on a full moon, but it's like the moon isn't full because it's getting eclipsed by the Earth, right? So it's like, I almost see it as like an additional, like it's almost like a portal almost, because instead of it being like a full moon, it's actually more like a new moon, you know? So it's basically like you're having almost like two back-to-back new moons. And then with the solar eclipse, which happens usually a few weeks later, it's like, you know, it switches. So it's kind of like this, it's this a weird, like almost liminal space when it comes to eclipses, but that's what makes eclipses so powerful. It's kind of like you're in like this energetic limbo almost, at least that's what I feel like it is. And you kind of get like thrown off your usual rhythm and your usual pattern. But what's interesting is because the last lunar eclipse was in Pisces, and then this next solar eclipse, this is happening on the 2nd, it's going to be in Libra. These signs are very different. Like Pisces is a mutable sign, and then Libra is a cardinal sign. So they both have like a different modality. Cardinal signs are like initiators, right? They like to get going on things, like to get started on projects. And then mutable signs are kind of always oscillating between periods of like inactivity and activity, right? So basically this eclipse cycle is kind of like pointing out potentially areas maybe where we need to take more initiative, but then also maybe areas in which we need to pull back and like rest a bit, right? So kind of finding that balance between like drive and ambition, but also finding ways where you can meaningfully rest, right? That's kind of what I think this eclipse is pointing out to us, right? Yeah. As well as with Libra and Pisces, Libra is an air sign, right? And Pisces is a water sign, right? So the thing is, air signs are very mental and they're very intellectual, right? And they're very like focused on kind of like abstract concepts, and they're just naturally detached because of that. Like Megan's got a lot of air in her chart. You're a Gemini, you know, like I've also got a lot of air in my chart, right? So it's kind of like this detached quality to air signs. But then water signs, on the other hand, are very like emotionally and intuitively grounded, right? And invested, right? So it's also, this eclipse cycle is also pointing out areas where we need to detach more perhaps, and also areas where we need to maybe be more invested, like emotionally invested in things, right? So it's like, you can analyze this eclipse based on like just the modality, you know, cardinal, fixed, mutable, and then also the element that it's occurring in, right? The air-water sort of polarity, right? air is also traditionally masculine and water is traditionally feminine, right? So it's kind of balancing of polarities. And that's usually what's going on with astrology. It's all usually about balancing polarities, but especially with eclipses, right? Because they usually do happen in opposing signs. Yeah. I think too with the eclipses, I am seeing some like Saturn stuff happening and Venus stuff happening with the eclipses, or just like around the eclipses that stuff is happening. Venus being like the planet of relationships, of love, of connection, and then Saturn being like the planet of like restriction, right? So people could see like some relationship themes coming up, right? Especially with the upcoming solar eclipse. It is in Libra, right? And Libra is the sign of, relationships and all that, right? So it could be some stuff coming up relating to like our relationships, how we relate to others and how we communicate with others and that sort of stuff, right? Just stuff to keep in mind, Eclipses too are notorious for kind of causing chaos or causing just like unexpected things to happen, right? So it's like sudden blow-ups or people being really like emotional all of a sudden and stuff coming out of nowhere, and you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Well, it's because it's an eclipse, that's why.
When were they or are they?
So basically we had a lunar eclipse, which was a couple weeks ago, and that was in the sign of Pisces, but then the solar eclipse is happening on the 2nd, October 2nd. So we're kind of in that window between eclipses, right? In that sort of energetic limbo space, where you're kind of like...
I've had quite a little bit of chaos happen in the last couple
that's
days.
been like, it's been incredibly chaotic.
I cried today because Gabe poured water all over the bathroom floor.
Yeah, I know, and then he wanted to eat oranges for dinner because he didn't like his dinner.
Everyone's emotional in our household.
Yeah. Well, Eric's a Pisces too, so... So that's, Pisces are kind of renowned for that. But then October 8th, this is after the eclipse. We kind of get a little bit of a break, which is nice, like, because like eclipses are pretty intense. So, it's nice to get a little bit of a breather. But we've got Mercury in Libra forming an opposition to Chiron in Aries. Libra, the sign of relationships, and Aries, the sign of the individual, right? Also with Mercury, you're always dealing with things surrounding communication and just things having to do with the mind. But then with Chiron again is like the trauma asteroid, I like to call it, the wounded healer. So it's like putting those two themes together, you might find that there's trauma surrounding like communication, right? Especially communication when it comes to communicating with like partners or friends or spouses or like whatever, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. That's kind of like also part of the eclipse energy too. That's kind of like gonna carry over into October. You're still gonna like see that.
Yay.
But again, it's always about balancing, right? You've got Aries, the sign of the individual, and Libra, the sign of, being in relation to others. So you might need to ask yourself, like, do you neglect your own needs for the sake of the needs of others, right? Or do you forsake the needs of others for the needs of yourself, right? So you're trying to find a balance between your own needs and other people's needs, right? Because people do tend to swing one of two ways. You have, some people who are very like overly selfish, they're overly focused on themselves and they don't really care about the people around them. But then you also have the other people who people pleasers, right? Who don't focus on their own needs and they're just always trying to deal with everyone else, like what everyone else has going on, right? And they just kind of don't really pay attention to themselves. But then that's not good, right? Both of those extremes aren't good. So you're trying to find like a middle ground between like yourself and others, right? And I always like to think about it in terms of like, you need to be a little bit selfish to care for others, right? Like you need to have boundaries. You need to exactly, like you need to take care of yourself before you can take care of others, right? If you're like running around doing everything for everyone, trying to be there for everyone, then it's like, that's just going to lead to like burnout, and you're just going to probably also become resentful because you're doing everything for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, you have to find a balance between the two, right? Asking for help is also a big one too. I think a lot of people don't like ask for like help, you know?
Sounds familiar.
Because sometimes all you have to do is ask, right? If you need someone to like do something or help out in some way, you just say, hey, can you do this?
I almost get offended when someone's like, do you want help with this? Because I'm like, no. But then I actually do need the help.
Yeah. It's like denial.
It's like kills my ego.
Yeah, because you're like, I can handle. Yeah, it's almost like you're like, I can handle this. I can do it myself. I'm like strong and independent, and I can do it myself. But it's like sometimes you actually need to like let go of that and be like, yeah, actually, I need to. I need to take it easy for a bit, you know. Yeah. And then we have Jupiter going retrograde in the sign of Gemini on October 9th, which, you know, retrogrades, everyone's going to freak out about. You're going to hear about it online. People are going to be like, oh my God, Jupiter's going retrograde. It's the end of the world, you know, that sort of thing. And again, retrogrades is like, basically it's an optical illusion. So essentially because of the way that a planet is like rotating in relation to Earth, it ends up looking like it's moving backwards. So like a planet is essentially like going around the sun in like such a way that like our orbit, like it basically looks like it slows down, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like a perspective thing, right? And then it looks like it's moving backwards, and you're like, oh my God, this planet's moving backwards, right? But it's actually not. But basically that, you know, the retrograde is just like a symbolic feature. So it's basically like the planet is kind of slowing down and it's coming to a standstill, and then it's reversing direction, right, through the zodiac. So basically you see a reoccurrence of the themes that you previously saw, right? So retrogrades kind of allow for us to like take in more, right? Mm-hmm. It's allowing you to like re-experience the same themes over again, right? So this time, that's also too when people talk about like spiraling upwards in consciousness, like a spiral, like life is like a spiral, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like a circle. You return to the same points in the cycle, but you're different than the last time, right? Mm-hmm. So you're like continually growing throughout life, right?
Yeah. If you choose to. Some people
don't. Yeah, exactly. It is a choice, right? You can choose to.
Because you keep getting the same lessons.
You do, exactly. You do get the same lessons, and then it's like your choice whether or not, like, to like work with it and like go with it. Because I think it can feel demoralizing too if you find yourself in the same place that you were like a few years ago. You're like, oh my God, like I'm back here again. But then you also realize
thing too, like everyone's like, oh, I'm doing this, and then you're like, oh, I'm stuck in this place that I was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like it feels like there's no improvement, but you also have to recognize the differences, right? So you need to also recognize, like when you do find yourself stuck in one of those moments, you have to recognize the ways in which you have improved, right? And you need to also recognize that setbacks aren't like, it's not linear, right? Yeah. Like your growth as a person isn't linear. There's always going to be setbacks and stuff. So, you know. That's just how it goes. But specifically with Jupiter, Jupiter is the planet of expansion, abundance, and like ease, right? So we're kind of like reflecting on those sort of themes surrounding like expansion and abundance and like optimism, right? We're kind of like reflecting on that, right? Like how can I work to be more optimistic? How can I work to be more abundant in my mindset surrounding things, right? Especially with Jupiter being retrograde in Gemini too. Gemini is a very like misunderstood zodiac sign. The Gemini energy is kind of like it's a mutable air sign, right? So it's kind of like all over the place. Like it's very much like it's very scatterbrained. It's like, oh, I want to do this, and now I want to do this, and now I want to do this. Do you know what I mean? Like Geminis typically are very curious. They're not so much stuck on like one particular topic, right? Like they want to explore like a variety of topics, you know? And so, but we live in a society which really discourages that curiosity and says, oh no, you have to find one thing and stick with it for your entire life, basically, right? Like you have to become an expert in this one thing and do this one thing.
The older folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like kind of representative of the opposing energy, which is Sagittarius, which interestingly enough, Jupiter rules over Sagittarius. And so when Jupiter is in the opposing sign of Sagittarius, it's actually technically in its like detriment. Like it's not good. It's not good when Jupiter's in Gemini, right? But I don't really necessarily believe that. I think it's just like we kind of need to come to terms with the curiosity, right? And embracing that, like the fact that sometimes we don't need to delve fully into a topic to feel fulfilled, right? Like you can read the first 2 chapters of one book and then you can get bored of it and then go read the first 2 chapters of another book. And there's nothing like inherently bad about that, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, but there's this mentality that, oh, I like have this book and I need to finish it and see it through. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like when you find a movie or you find a book or something that you don't really enjoy, you just you like get bored and you're just like, okay, I'll find something else.
Yeah,
exactly. But it's very like childlike too, right? That sort of energy of allowing yourself to indulge in.
I don't get how some people can not like a book and feel like they have to finish it. Like,
yeah, I know. There are some people like that though, right? Who hate a book and then they're like, oh, I have to finish it. Like I have to see it through, right? Yeah. Whereas this is kind of like asking us to maybe embrace kind of just allowing yourself just the little things, right? Dabbling. Yeah, just like let yourself dabble, right? And it's very healing. I think that perspective is very healing, especially when it comes to like doing like the sort of like inner child work that people always talk about, right? Is like, I think it's
shadow work or whatever it's called.
Well, like inner child, like child work. But yeah, it's like can be part of shadow work. But yeah, so it's like, you know, feeding your inner child, because children are very curious, right? They're like, they see the world through that kind of gaze, right? Of like wanting to do everything, wanting to explore, right? And so that's kind of what I'm picking up for this Jupiter retrograde. That's what it's going to be about, which I think is exciting. Then on October 11th, we've got Pluto going direct. So basically we've got Jupiter going retrograde, and then Pluto was retrograde, and now it's going to be direct, right, on the 11th. And so like when a planet goes direct, it's like the opposite of a retrograde, right? It's like essentially the planet coming out of the retrograde, and it's going to start moving forward again through the zodiac. And Pluto basically went retrograde in the sign of Aquarius, and it moved back into the sign of Capricorn. And so now it's going to be moving forward again through Capricorn into Aquarius, right? So basically, this is the last time that Pluto will be in Capricorn for our entire lives, because Pluto takes like roughly like it's like 248 years to get through the entire zodiac. So we will not be seeing Pluto in Capricorn ever again. Essentially, we'll be dead when Pluto is next in Capricorn. But because the outer planets move so slowly, they're said to have like a more significant impact on like society, like societal cycles. Like it's less so about the individual, right? And Capricorn is the sign that's associated with like structure, right? Structure and like institutions, you know, and order, right? And Pluto is all about death and destruction and downfall, right? So it's kind of like the downfall of structure or the downfall of order, or like especially outdated structures, because Aquarius, which is Pluto's going to be moving into again, Aquarius is like almost the opposite of that, in that Aquarius is all about breaking down of outdated things, right? Like it's concerned with freedom, it's concerned with revolution, that sort of thing. So this is why like a lot of people have been talking about with regards to Pluto, specifically like the US and the US presidential election and what could be coming up with regards to that, because Pluto is going to be basically sitting like near like the last degree of Capricorn during this election, right? And there's some significant things that are going to be happening in the US.
We also have an election on the 19th.
We do also have an election then.
Oh my God, but if Kamala
Provincial.
gets elected right as this happens.
Yeah, it will be crazy. But it's also a lot of astrologers that I follow, which I kind of agree with, they're kind of hinting at potentially like some sort of civil disputes happening in the US, like civil war potentially, because it's like, I mean, it's very polarized. I think like the US especially is very polarized, like more so than most other countries, but in other countries it's getting pretty bad too, right? But there's also a lot of other things that could be going on, like other planetary forces that could be causing some sort of problems as well. But it's not just astrologers that have been saying this, it's also historians that have been saying this. Because a lot of historians, they study if you look at the lead up to like a civil war or like a revolution and like all these significant events happening, you can kind of see patterns, right? And they're like, the patterns are there. You know? So it's yeah, I know. It is very scary. It's very...
It's like predictable-ish.
Yeah, like it's like... It's definitely, I think we've already seen some of that too, like little hints of that, you know, with like when was it? What was it? January something? 6th? Yeah, January 6th, like that sort of stuff, but on like maybe a bit of a wider scale. Because it's very polarized, you know, in the US right now. So we'll see how that goes. I hope I'm wrong. But you know, I don't really like doomsday predictions, but it's also like people always freak out about like when things start to like break down or go wrong, but it's also like the whole theme of Pluto is like something needs to be created from what's been broken down, right? So it's like that's also just the natural cycle of things, though. I think that
like a phoenix, when it rises, then it regrows from the ashes.
Exactly. But that's just the natural cycle of things, is like we create societies out of nothing and we create order from chaos, but then that order and that structure eventually deteriorates because it's not sustainable, right? Because humans get, you know, greedy, and it's all about like wealth, it's all about taking resources, it's all about power, right? Again, Pluto, another Plutonian theme, power. And so power like corrupts, right? So when you build societies off of power, it ends up just naturally deteriorating, and it's kind of like a cycle. Like I see it almost as like an inevitable part of like human civilization, right? So it's like, yeah, it's bad, but it's also like, can you really stop it? Like, I don't know, you know? Like, yeah. So I guess we'll see what happens with that, but yeah. It's kind of like you need to have like almost like an awareness of, like, it is a little bit of that detachment of like, you don't necessarily want to become like numb to things, but it's also the recognition of like cycles, right? And also of like embracing both the suffering and the joy, right? Which is very hard to do, because I think as humans we only like to embrace the joy and we kind of like to turn away from the suffering. But like one of the things you learn in yoga is that the real meaning of love is to like embrace all experiences, right? So which is easy to say, obviously. I mean, I feel like it's a privileged thing to say, right?
Yeah.
To be able to like recognize that, to be able to have the space to like think through that. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people don't have that. They don't have the space to be allowed to like think that way, right? Because they're just trying to survive, you know? Yeah. Which is another Plutonian theme, survival. Anyways, all of that to say there's a lot of stuff going on with Pluto, and hopefully it turns out for the best.
Hopefully it's not a civil war, but
Hopefully
we'll
it's
see.
not a civil war. You never know.
If there is, I'll say you predicted it.
I did predict your pregnancy.
You did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because it was eclipse happening in her 5th house. It was the last eclipse cycle, and I was like, oh, it's happening in your 5th house. It would be a good time to get pregnant.
And then
she got pregnant.
Sent her a message. I'm like, oh well, you weren't wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe my kid will be named Lauren.
Oh my God, no.
No, it's okay. She already has 2 last names. She can't have a long one.
But then October 12th, we've got Jupiter sextiling Chiron again, which is like, again, because it's retrograde, it's also like you've seen this before, like Jupiter sextiled Chiron like not that long ago. So again, it's reemergence of like the same themes.
Repeating itself.
So it's like basically, again, with Chiron, you're talking about trauma and you're talking about wounds. And with Jupiter, you're talking about like expansion. So it could be a really good time to like do things like getting over your fear of taking up space, right? Because a lot of people don't want to take up space. It's also a good time to kind of like overcome, again, some of those people-pleasing tendencies, which we talked about earlier, right? And again, with Jupiter being in Gemini, it's a good time to like feed your inner child and do some inner child work, do some trauma work, because I feel like a lot of people have childhood trauma. So yeah, but it's nice because it's a sextile, but it's also like you might have to, sextiles are very dynamic in that you usually have to like work to kind of see the fruits of that particular alignment, right? Like it takes a bit of work, you know, like journaling or, you know, just doing something consciously. And then on the 13th, October 13th, we have...
Is that a Friday?
I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a Friday the 13th this week. October.
Yeah, that would be creepy though. If there was in October. October's like spooky season.
Well, the first is on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no. I think it would be on like a Wednesday or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But Mercury on the 13th is going to be in Scorpio. We've got actually a lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff going on. We've got Mercury in Scorpio, and then we've got Mars forming a square to Chiron. Then we've got the Sun forming an opposition to Chiron. So, you know, it's like kind of like dark.
Mess.
Because Scorpio is again ruled by Pluto, which Pluto is like death, rebirth. You know, it's like the shadow self, sort of the stuff that you maybe don't want to acknowledge, right? And the planet of, you know, the mind, Mercury, the mind, the intellect, is kind of moving into that darker sort of sign of Scorpio, right? So it's kind of like there's going to be like more focus and more awareness of those sorts of themes, right? Like you may find yourself having more like intense conversations with people, or like more deep conversations with people, maybe getting down to the root of things, right? And that could be like addressing like past grievances or just like conflicts, right? Or it could just be also, it could be really heart to heart conversations though, right? But they're still very like deep, meaningful, impactful things that you're talking about, right? Which, I mean, I think that that's a beneficial energy to work with, right? Because you can do a lot of healing when you talk through things, right? With like friends and family and, you know. Therapists, yeah.
It's always good to have an unbiased opinion.
Yeah. it's kind of just the theme of, this is with Chiron too, as well, with all these aspects forming to Chiron. It's about finding kind of like what's hidden and bringing it into the light, right? So then it can heal, right? Because things can't really heal if they just stay in the darkness, right? You have to like bring them to conscious awareness, right?
People
is the
that
idea.
say that they're healed, but then get triggered by this thing that they say they're healed for. They haven't healed.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes time to do that, right? That's like a conscious thing that you have to do, and it takes a really long time to do that. But that is how you ultimately become like healed, right? Not that I believe that there's ever like an end to that process. You know, people are like, I'm healed, and it's like there's not really like an end to like, do you know what I mean? Like there's not like an end point. You're always like, because humans are multidimensional and they're always changing. Like from one moment to the next, you're never the same, right? So it's like you're always healing. You're always like,
well, you say you can
encountering
be healed, but then
new,
a certain trigger will set it off, and you're like, oh, maybe not, and then a different trigger will set it off, and it's like,
like,
unless you're an enlightened master.
Yeah, but even then I'm sure there's probably moments where there's like,
it's more like,
yeah, it's like a little, instead of like a big change, it's like a little, you know, that's just the nature of being human though. Like you can't ever be like,
it'll always
just all the time.
But for them, it's just like,
it'd be too boring.
It would be too boring. Yeah. And then October 14th, we've got Venus opposition Uranus. So Venus opposition Uranus, you might see oppositions, they say, are supposedly like you meet something external to yourself, right? So with Venus and Uranus, you might like meet some sort of like odd people, like some oddballs may come into your life or reemerge, right? Sort of like unique encounters, you know?
When is this?
It's October 14th. Maybe like there's some hippie down the street and he like offers you some mushrooms or something, and he's like, yo, you want to like microdose with me or something? Like, you know, that's probably like the stereotypical, when I think of this aspect, that's like stereotypically but it probably isn't going to be something so like in your face, like, you know. Who knows though, that would be crazy if that did happen, but yeah.
You never know.
But it's also about like with Venus and Uranus, like Uranus is all about freedom, and then Venus is the planet of relationships. So like people might need more space, right, within their relationships to like kind of do their own thing, right?
I'm flying to LA for work that day. We'll see if there's any oddballs.
Flying to LA.
I feel like there's interesting
honestly,
people
I feel like there are interesting people in the airport. Yeah.
Or like I've been in, I mean, maybe I'll get the really weird Uber driver again, like things like that, dude.
When we were traveling as a family of 7 to go to
but like you're
Mexico,
sitting on someone very interesting on the plane or something.
Yeah.
There was this Korean couple that were trying to go through security with the metal carts with all their luggage, and you're not allowed to. And so this like really short ginger security guy was like, sorry, like you can't do that. And then they kept on like arguing in their language and like talking bad about him or whatever, and then they just kept on getting discouraged with him. He was getting discouraged with them, and then they like started getting really, really mad, and then all of a sudden he just started speaking their language back at them. So the whole entire time
he knew what they were saying.
He knew exactly what they were saying about him. And then we were like, what? Like it was just so unexpected.
That is crazy though. Like Korean's not easy to learn.
No.
So it's crazy that he knew that. I guess they're all a lot of people in airports though.
You
a lot
have
of
to
airport
have
workers.
a second language.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which one, I think, but you have to know one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was weird. We were like, that's interesting.
When was that?
Like
that recent?
In high school.
Oh, in high school.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a while ago then.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's Venus and Uranus together. It's always like this push and pull sort of quality. It's like, you know, like those people in high school, especially, you see it a lot of the time, the sort of on again, off again relationships. That's pretty much like
that's pretty common.
Classic. But that's like the classic sort of Venus Uranus like contact, right? Is like you're creating like distance, and then that distance creates tension and it pulls you back in, sort of. Right? So it's like you're creating like freedom and rebellion, and it's creating distance, which creates tension. And then that's sort of why you see those on again, off again couples, though, is because they like feel like they need a lot of freedom, but then they remember, once they have the freedom and they're kind of like off, then they're like, I'm bored, and it was actually kind of nice, like being with you. It's like the grass is always greener on the other side, sort of thing. And then it's like
TV
back and forth,
shows or movies too. It's so common.
It is very common in TV shows and movies. Not the best, not the most productive behavior, but yeah.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
But then on October 15th, we've got Venus trine Neptune. And this is like more harmonious because Neptune is like the higher expression of Venus. So if you have any conflicts that kind of crop up earlier in the month with the eclipse and with like all this stuff going on with like the Libra and Venus, then like on the 14th or on the 15th, it's like a good time to like resolve any of those conflicts. Like it's kind of like, the universe will give you opportunity to create conflict and then resolve the conflict, Then we've got a full moon happening on the 17th. So it's going to be a full moon in Aries. And then the same day we have a full moon in Aries, we also have Venus entering Sagittarius. So Aries and Sagittarius are both fire signs. So it's very like explosive and passionate energy, right? And it could be potentially very triggering for some people too, because the moon is going to, around this time, this moon in Aries, and this very fiery sign of Aries, this very angry sign of Aries, is going to form a conjunction to Chiron, the trauma asteroid. So it's like stuff might blow up in your face, like literally. But it's also like Aries again is the sign of the individual, right? So it could be there could be like themes coming up surrounding like becoming more assertive, or sitting with and expressing your anger, right? Because anger is like, I would say it's probably more a gendered thing. I think women are probably more discouraged from like being angry and expressing anger, but like learning how to sit with your anger and express it, right, is like another theme that may come up. Again, with Aries, there's always that theme of like letting go of people pleasing as well, right, which came up quite a few times when I did this month ahead forecast, right? So it's about getting your own needs met, like figuring out how to get your own needs met in your relationships with other people, kind of. Like it's a little bit of a more selfish period. But so watch out watch out for like your temper. Like don't obviously become too angry.
You're telling a pregnant woman to watch out for her temper?
I don't know, maybe not for you. For everyone else, watch out for your temper. It's mainly
like my anger just turns into tears.
Yeah. That happens too to me a lot. But don't do anything too impulsive basically during the full moon. Like don't do anything too rash. Like don't go full berserk mode and become part of like a true crime documentary, We're like so and so was a devoted mother or daughter, and they murdered their entire family. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. I don't think that's gonna happen though.
I would hope I know myself enough to seek help if that became a problem.
I'll be at a work event that keeps me pretty grounded. But I'm doing
you might end up with a lot of hot-headed. It's a what?
It's like a leadership. It's 2 leadership teams coming together. So we'll see if they get all hot-headed. I'll be the one
interesting people.
Rambunctious.
Harmonize it all.
You've got all of those Libra placements, so that's
It's right. Yeah.
It's your job.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
why that's
and
why
when
they
I'm in
hired
that
you.
mode, it's actually quite easy to not be angry. Yeah. It's like my Libra's at its best, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dealing with angry people.
The hard work's the day before, though, actually. So
Mm-hmm.
the next day, what are they doing? I'm like, what are they doing that day? Not as much. So that's good.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah. But then on October 22nd, we've got the Sun square Pluto, and then we've got the Sun going into Scorpio. So it's like the same thing. It's like double of the same thing. Basically, the Sun is forming a tense aspect to Pluto, and then the Sun is entering Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto, you know? So it's like very Plutonian. Like it's just like double Pluto, right? Scorpio, similar to Gemini, Scorpio is one of those signs. I was talking about this earlier, but Scorpio is one of those signs that's misunderstood, right? And it's usually a sign where, like, especially during Scorpio season, I was talking earlier about how, like, people, there's always some sort of event that happens for a lot of people in the fall, like a sort of canon life event that happens, something big happens, and then it's like they have to like adjust and like transform with that event, right?
Now, is this just for October, or does this go into like all of fall?
This is just like October, November, that's Scorpio season. So it's like for the month of like the October 22nd to like November 20, whatever. It's like Scorpio season, right?
Because I think my due date's
That's
like
when you're
the cutoff of like Scorpio or Sag.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like November 21st, right? That I think that is the cutoff.
The 21st?
That's when your due date is, right?
The 24th.
24th? That's pretty close though.
Yeah.
That's why you need to get the birth time.
Mm-hmm.
Because then if you're born on the day the sun switches signs and you don't have the birth time, you could be either... You won't know which one you are.
Well, I will definitely be a person to get the birth time. I'll be texting you right away. She's here. This is and this.
Get this chart read immediately.
Yeah.
Tell me about
I need
this child.
I need to know about my child.
Eric, just get Eric to sit there with the stopwatch, like...
Well, when
exact
you
time.
give birth, they call out the time that they're born.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they write everything down. They chart everything.
It's on your birth certificate.
Yeah, like they'll have all that information. I'll be too groggy.
Yeah.
Is it on your birth
I
certificate?
don't-
Well, at least in the US it is. I don't know if they do it in Canada.
I don't think they do it in Canada, but
But they
I
definitely
have
have
both my
it.
parents' birth times, but I don't have my siblings. I've been really wanting to get their birth times.
Your
Though.
mom doesn't have them?
No, well, the only reason I had mine is because I was the first one, and she wrote down my birth time in a scrapbook, and that's how I know what time I was born at.
Yeah.
But my brother and sister,
Baby
I
books
don't
and
know.
scrapbooks, that used to be a thing.
I know what
They
time.
have them with the first
I-
one.
Yeah.
I asked Grandma. I asked your mom.
I'm surprised you remembered.
Yeah, I
that.
asked. No, but she
I'm the
looked.
middle child, so
No, but
it's
she had to
easy.
look. No, she had the notes though. She kept like the doctor's notes and stuff. So we looked through that, right? And that's how I found his birth time. Is by I was like, Grandma, what's his birth time? And she like had to go through all the files. And then I found my mom's birth time in the basement and her box. It was like she had this huge book of like all this like baby stuff. And I found it. It was the very last page, and it was like a doctor's note, and it had the birth time on it. My mom's birth time. So that's how I found her birth time. So it's like, yeah, so I'm lucky to have at least my parents' birth times. You were born at 2:50 in the morning, and then Mom was born
Makes sense.
at
That's probably why I'm a night owl.
8:47 at night.
I was a night kid too.
Yeah.
I'm Googling whether or not they have them.
When you give birth that early in the morning, that's gotta suck.
Yeah.
Like
For you or the people giving birth? It's up
for
to
the
you.
workers and the person giving birth. I mean, I guess those people are used to
Yeah.
working night shift, so
Yeah.
Well, it probably depends if the doctor's expecting it
yeah.
at a certain time. Probably when it gets dragged out like it did for her, it's bad for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like,
Everyone's just complaining, ready for you to just
The
come
doctor's
out.
been there for hours waiting, and
yeah, they had to pull me out by my head.
By a vacuum?
Yeah, apparently they're not allowed to do that though anymore.
But they
It's
did
like
it
that.
the third time.
they
They're not
do
supposed to do it a third time, but they did it the third time.
And I come out the third time,
Yeah.
3 times the charm.
It
They-
explains a lot.
They'll use
I almost
whatever
fell
they
on the
need
floor,
to
too.
in order to. They'll do the safest way possible. So at the time they could use the vacuum. I think that's like one of the last.
Yeah, it was like a
resorts
suction
now.
cup. I know you're not allowed. I know you're not allowed to
The
use
forceps.
forceps though. You're not.
For-
You're not allowed to do
Forceps.
that anymore?
No.
You
That
can
was
do
next
no. You
for
can do forceps still.
Can you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's just
Supposed to
not.
be
It's
not.
like one of the last resorts,
Not
obviously,
a lot of
but
fun, apparently.
but they still have them.
Mm.
Yeah, and then they still also do episiotomies too.
I don't know what that is, but okay.
A slicey slice in the women's
Oh.
to make room.
Ow.
Yeah,
I know when you were like, what is that? I'm like, do we really want to go there?
yeah.
I don't want children anyways. I don't like them, so
What was that?
I
She
don't
doesn't
like children.
She's gonna hold my kid and then just be like, here.
I can tolerate them for a little while. Like I don't hate them, but like
If she
I'm
hears
not like a big fan
The
of
baby
children.
make
Like
a sound,
I've
then
never been.
she's like, no.
I've never been really into kids. Like I remember when Auntie Heather had her
It's
2
different when
daughters.
they're your own, though. It is different.
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
they're
I
your
didn't
own.
like kids until I had them. And I like
Like changing diapers, I've worked with kids for years, and to me, like, it wasn't that big of a deal, but like it wasn't my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
But like when I change Gabe's or when I'll be changing hers, it'll just be like second nature. Like it's just not as gross when it's your own kid than other people's.
Yeah, I still don't like them.
Fair
I feel like
enough.
that's not the wisest choice to be like, oh, I'll have kids even though I don't really like them.
Well, yeah. I think like what if you like knew exactly what your kid would be like?
No.
Doesn't that ruin
No?
everything? No? Is
Yeah,
what
that does
you're
ruin
one of those
everything.
people who want to know exactly what your kids.
I mean, like, not like down to the finest detail, but like just like a general idea of like, will you be a demon child or will you actually be like able to sleep at night?
No, I wouldn't care. I mean, either way, it's bad. So they could be an angel, and I'd still be like, leave me alone. I know
But
they could be an
also,
angel, and I'd be like,
kids are always so different, right? Like my mom was
Yeah.
saying that like when she was pregnant with my brother, like before she even knew she was pregnant, she was puking and sick. But then when she had me, wasn't sick at all.
Mhm.
But then some parents that I worked for, when they had their boy, they were totally fine. But then when they had their girl, they were totally sick. So like it really depends on the person
Yeah,
and the kid.
yeah. Nah, not for me.
Fair enough.
People always say I'll change my mind, but I'm like,
You can if you
clock's
ever,
ticking.
if you ever really question if you want to have a kid or not, just come over to my house for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You'll be like, okay,
I can
I'm
babysit.
good. I'll go.
I'll
home.
have all my friends will have kids though. Like I think Jessica will have a kid. I'm pretty sure Tani will probably have a kid. So it's like I'll have like my friends will have kids. So I can just take care of their kids.
By the time they have kids, my kid will probably be in like kindergarten.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, what was I talking about before? Oh, Sun and Scorpio, basically.
double Pluto.
Double Pluto. Yeah. So Scorpio again, it's like, again, I was talking about like the canon events
Yeah.
happening. Scorpio's like, yeah, it's like basically in traditional astrology, it was actually ruled by Mars, but in modern astrology, it's ruled by Pluto. And that makes sense because Scorpios they are very Plutonian, but they also are like fighters. Like they'll fight you, you know, they'll really stand up for what they believe in, sort of thing. But Scorpio again is like pretty like of the zodiac signs. I feel like people don't like Scorpios. But Scorpios really are like, they kind of like reflect back the worst parts of yourself. You know, they reflect that back to you, and it's like people don't like to see the worst parts of themselves reflected back. So that's why that's why I think they get kind of like a bad reputation, because it's like you don't want to acknowledge the darker parts of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of Scorpios in my life.
No?
My dad's a Scorpio.
We've got a lot of Scorpios.
Do you?
Yeah, both my brother and sister are Scorpios.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No,
And then
just your sister is.
no, Matthew's a Scorpio.
Oh, Matthew is.
Matthew is.
Yeah.
When are their birthdays?
Matthew's October 24th.
Mm.
And the Scorpio season is the
And
22nd.
Melissa?
Melissa's November 9th.
Matthew's super chill. No, he's just.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like I have less
They're
of
both
an
very
issue with
different,
men
though.
Scorpios than women Scorpios.
Well,
No,
they-
but Matthew has a lot of other stuff in
there's
his chart
other
that
things
calms him down.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Like his Mars
not
is in
feeling
Taurus. His Mars is in
yeah,
Taurus.
So that would calm him down.
So
a
he's
little,
very
right?
chill. Yeah, he's kind of lazy.
Does he like to, like chill and watch?
Yeah, he
reels?
likes to chill and he likes to play video games or just like sit on the couch, and he likes food too. That's why he's so
Comfort
like
food.
his base. He's just like that is like a pretty basic Mars and Taurus though. So, but that chills him out a bit definitely because Scorpio is again traditionally ruled by Mars, but then Taurus is ruled by Venus. So that's kind of like a polarity, right? Mars is all about like, it's kind of the more masculine principle where it's like fighting and like aggression and assertion and like working towards your goals, right? It's kind of more selfish. But then Venus is like relationships and love and getting along with people. So it's like that polarity in his chart is kind of, I think, what chills him out a bit, at least compared to Melissa. Melissa's kind of a stereotypical Scorpio, but
She's
yeah.
fiery.
She's
Yeah.
getting a bit better. She's
Yeah.
getting a bit better.
But then both my parents are Libras, so that's
We're not that much alike, I don't think. But
no, you and mom. No, you're different.
It's the other
Definitely.
stuff in the chart that.
But they're still very like. They're still very like they do like to keep the peace. I guess my mom probably a little less so.
okay.
They're similar but different.
No, but they are always like yeah, like
Like there's similarities, but they're very different people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Libras, the thing with Libras is they like the nice, they like everything to be nice and harmonious, and Scorpios are like, fuck that, I'm
just
gonna break through
throw
that.
this
Yeah.
right in your harmony.
Do you know? Yeah,
Watch it happen.
basically, they're like,
Yeah.
no, there's, yeah, it's kind of
My
like,
mom's a Pisces and my dad's a Scorpio.
Oh.
that's good though. That's both
My mom,
water signs.
My mom's very much all water. I think.
Yeah.
I think she's water and her moon. And
I would have
sun
thought
and
she was a
Mars.
Capricorn though. She's very type A, so I would have like
There
Capricorn,
might
Virgo,
be Capricorn in her
or
chart.
Virgo. Yeah, I think there's probably some of that. But yeah, anyway, so we've got again Sun in Scorpio on the 22nd. So all that stuff I was talking about earlier, but it's also like Scorpio is like the fertile soil that you get like before you plant the seeds, right? So it's about like rebirth and transformation, right? It's kind of like you're setting, you're planting a seed in the soil, right? And you're hopefully going to see something emerge from that, right? It's like, again, the phoenix emerging from the ashes, right? It's like what I was talking about earlier with regards to civilization. It's like you see civilizations crumble to the ground and then new life springs forward from what was destroyed, right? So it's like destruction and creation. That's also why I think Scorpio is a very powerful sign. It's also interesting too that Pluto, the modern ruler of Scorpio, is the last planet in astrology, the last planet in the solar system. And it's the planet. It's interesting too when you think about civilizations. They say that the greatest civilizations usually only last 250 years, and it takes Pluto roughly 248 years to travel through the entire zodiac.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
I wonder why. Do they ever tell you why?
Well, I mean, I would guess that it's because Pluto is, because it's an outer planet, it's controlling the cycles of civilization, right? Like a lot of the inner planets that move fast, those control like our own personal cycles. But Pluto is controlling society's cycles.
Okay. So like the bigger
Stuff, which the individual is a part of society, right? So it's like it affects you in that way, but it's not as direct necessarily, right?
And the U.S. is like right at about 250 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, when will they be 250 years? They're pretty close to it now.
1776. So, yeah, 1976 plus 20.
Yeah, I remember the
76 plus
bicentennial.
25
Yeah, that's
or
right.
plus 50. Yeah, close.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2026.
We'll see. That's also why people also predict civil war.
Yeah.
They're like, it's about time. the clock's
Hasn't
ticking.
happened yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Roman Empire must have been a lot longer though. Like way.
Let's just see what
I don't know.
BBC has to say about
I don't know if the Roman Empire was that long. I know the Ottoman Empire was very long. The Ottoman
How long
Empire
was the Roman
was.
Empire in existence.
I know the Ottoman Empire was really long, but I don't know if the.
1,500 years
Mm.
for the Roman Empire.
That is still pretty long.
They went through 4 cycles.
Yeah.
They went through 6 cycles.
Yeah, they
Two
survived
main
a while.
phases, though. Yeah.
They survived a while.
The first phase was founded in 27 BCE and lasted until 476 CE. 500 years. And then what's the next part?
It's kind of like there's mini cycles within
Mm-hmm.
the whole collapse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. We're definitely living through a very interesting period in history.
Yeah, I know it's strange.
Mm.
It is weird.
It's interesting as like an astrologer to watch it, even though you're not actually really watching it. It's more like you're living it, because it's like since like we're so close to US and like our economy is so dependent on them. It's like it's gonna affect you. It's like I wish it didn't, but it's gonna affect everyone.
It'll affect everybody.
Yeah. And you're from there, right? You've got your family living down there too. Yeah.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah.
California is that?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be on the left or more the left side of the.
Yeah. But there's some Republicans in our family. We don't really talk to them about the elections or anything political. We can avoid it. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes it's just better that way.
Yeah.
I do
That's
love
Doug's family.
I do
Protecting your peace.
I do love a conspiracy though, but it's more for me, it's more so entertainment. Do you know what I mean? Like it's more like entertaining, like, oh, this conspiracy is entertaining. I don't necessarily believe it, but it's certainly a cool story if it is.
Well, you
even if it's not true, it's still a cool story.
Brain
Like
power to like not acknowledge the like craziness of it, because some people can go into conspiracies and then just spiral and believe it and like all that, right? Like you can decipher kind of.
That's because I'm a Virgo though. I've got this discernment. Like I've got too much Virgo in my chart to be like, if this is what I say even I don't have many Pisces placements like at all. Like maybe like an asteroid or something is in Pisces, but I say if you've got like one significant Pisces placement, that's enough to like cloud your judgment. Because it's like,
well,
if you've
Eric's
got
a Pisces.
Yeah.
The people that he's been with before me. No.
Yeah. It's very, but like Virgos can usually see through a lot of bull crap, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess that's good. But yeah. Then we've got, this is the 24th. This is Matthew's birthday, actually. We've got Mars forming a sextile to Uranus. Mars and Uranus, I think I've talked about Mars and Uranus before, is not like the best combination, because Mars is like the planet of like war and like aggression and stuff. And then Uranus is the planet of like breaking down of barriers, right? So when you put the two together, it kind of like they kind of feed off each other, and it can kind of create this sort of like recklessness and impulsivity, right? Which can lead to like accidents potentially. But it is like a sextile though.
So you have to work for it.
Yeah, you have to work for the accident. You have to really be not paying attention. No, but like I think accidents, sometimes I think it's going to be more little accidents. Do you know what I mean? Like you drop a glass or you prick your finger when you're chopping
like
veggies. Yeah. but accidents often can teach us something. Do you know what I mean? Like they're telling us to like kind of slow down and take our time, right? Like, because usually when you drop a glass or when you break something or, you know, whatever, like it's because you weren't being present. Like you're
cautious enough.
But you weren't
your mind was somewhere else.
Yeah, your mind was somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like accidents can teach us stuff. So I think that that's something that might come up with this Mars and Uranus thing. Yeah. And then October 28th, we've got Mars trine Neptune. Mars trine Neptune is pretty nice. It's like people are going to be more motivated to engage in like spiritual stuff and intuitive stuff, right? Like sort of wanting to be like connected to a higher power. There's going to be a bigger like drive for that with Mars trine Neptune. Which means it's a good time for like spiritual growth though, right? Because Neptune is also the planet, it's also again the higher vibration of Venus. It rules over Pisces. It's also about the desire for unconditional love, right? And about developing a deeper sense of understanding, right? Because also too at this time Mars is going to be in Cancer and then Neptune's going to be in Pisces. It's like very watery. And as well with Cancer too, because Mars in Cancer, there can also be this tendency with Cancer, there's always this desire for like self-protection, like wanting to kind of like retreat into yourself. It's kind of like hermit mode, you know? So it's not necessarily it's not necessarily the best time for social activities. Like it's more so a time to like retreat and like spend time with yourself, like meditate, journal, like do some yoga or like
self-work.
Self-work. I really like sound baths. I like to like do some gentle yin yoga and I'll put on sound baths. That's what I've been doing recently because I just love that.
Oh, I thought a sound bath was like listening to music while in the bath.
Oh no. No, it's like the sound bowls. It's the bowls.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was called a sound bath. I was like a sound bath, so you play music and relax.
They have them. They host them a lot actually around here. I should bring you to one. They're really nice. I really like them.
I went to the Sound Journey for the first time at Yoga by the Sea.
Oh, did you?
It was really cool.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was more than just the singing. It was like singing bowls, didgeridoo, guitar, like singing.
Oh, that's cool. That's funky.
Yeah, it was trippy. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But she's pregnant, so I don't think they'll do it for a while.
Heavily pregnant or just?
Heavily pregnant.
Yeah.
Very heavily pregnant, yeah. But then there's someone from Lululemon actually that lives out here that does sound baths. Georgia is her name. So you probably
She's the Raintree Lane Retreat. I've been to one of them. It was hosted by, I forget who it was that hosted. It wasn't Georgia. It was someone else who did the sound bath. She was hosting it, but
there's someone named Lindsay that does it sometimes too.
Yeah, I think she was like a dentist or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know the dentist.
Dentist with a side gig.
Yeah. Dentist, yeah, I know. I was like, that's an interesting side gig.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then October 30th, we've got Mercury opposition Uranus, which Mercury and Uranus, I like that. I think it's going to be like people are going to have like thoughts concerning like freedom and rebellion. And also there's going to be more focus, more emphasis on like society and like societal issues, right? Maybe you'll see some like interesting journal articles written too about like specific world events, like the stuff happening in Palestine or like the stuff happening like in other regions like the Congo or Sudan or like wherever, right?
Yeah.
You might see some maybe like a sort of like expose of sorts potentially.
Global stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing on Halloween, eh?
No, we do have October 31st. That's Halloween. We've got Mercury trine Neptune. So that's going to be nice as well. That's going to be again, Mercury is the planet of communication and the mind, and then Neptune is kind of like the planet of like, it kind of represents like a connectedness, like a spiritual connectedness, right? So it's going to be very like empathetic communication, and it's going to be about like fostering deep and loving connections with like other people, right? So it's very nice for Halloween, right? That's October 31st. Because it's going to be, well, it's also, the thing is Neptune as well, it's interesting because Neptune is, again, it's about spiritual connectedness, and Halloween or Samhain is said to be like the barrier between like our world and the spirit world is like the veil is very thin, right? So I think it's interesting that Neptune is going to be involved on that day for Halloween. It's nice though, like it's a trine, it's going to be nice, but I definitely think it's going to be a good Halloween. I'm excited for that because I love Halloween. It's my favorite. But then that's October. That's pretty much it.
We'll see if I can make it to the next Astro meet.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully, imagine you just go into labor.
I know. I might need to bring Eric with me. Just in case.
Yeah. But that's October. Any thoughts? I could pull a tarot card. I'm not as good with tarot, but we'll see. I've been wanting to get more into it.
I should do it more often.
I should see if I should. I think one of these is like, use that one out. Shuffle them. How do I shuffle the cards again? I'm not good at shuffling cards. Do I hold it like this?
You haven't figured it out yet?
Is that a bad one?
Either way.
Why'd you pull that one out?
No, I think you have to like, it's like
no,
this.
I
think you have to like, but now I can see.
We'll flip them over then.
I'm so bad at shuffling cards. It's because we were playing, what was it, Wizard? And I was they were laughing at me so hard because I was trying to shuffle the cards.
Like just regular deck of cards?
You need to play more cards.
I know. The tarot cards, they're a little bit bigger than like regular
A fresh
cards.
deck of tarot cards is hard, I will say.
Like
You gotta just wait until you like bend them a little bit and they're more
do
pliable.
that. Does anyone want to select one for us?
If it says death, I want to redraw. I want this one. King of Swords.
Oh, I don't know what that means.
Hey, it ain't death.
Yeah, it ain't death. That's good. Swords is, what is swords? What element is that? Is it fire? I think so. King of Swords.
What does the King of Swords represent? I'm just gonna see what.
I mean, it's good though. It's definitely good because he's like sitting up there. Structure, routine, power, authority, strength, manners, conversation, discerning, detached, cool, integrity, ethics, morals. I think that I'm relating this to. This probably relates most closely to, since it represents structure, it's probably relating to the Pluto, right? Pluto going direct in the sign of Capricorn for the last time, right? So it's probably related to that. And then Pluto, again, is the planet of death and destruction, and
So that was death.
but it's about the coming to terms with the power structures that we've developed, right? And seeing the death to the structure basically is kind of like
democracy.
Death to capitalism.
Yeah, there will be a lot of change in the
death to capitalism,
routine and
that sort of
structure
thing.
in our household coming up. So.
But it's very interesting. It's like, yeah. He does well in structured environments and needs to have a routine to operate at his best. He can be cyclical and stern in the extremely negative context. He can be a bully or a tyrant, and can be cold or distant if someone is too irrational for his liking. Right? which is interesting. The bully and the tyrant stuff. That's probably also stuff relating to the election as well.
Death to Trump. That's what
Well, I mean, he did almost get.
You said it.
Well, I mean, he did almost get
I
assassinated
know, he
too,
did.
like a couple of times, which is insane.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually insane. But yeah, that's what I'm reading that as, probably relating
All
to
of it is
Pluto.
insane.
Yeah, the whole situation.
The whole situation. Everything about it.
Yeah, people are saying that something might happen with the economy as well, because Neptune, I think, currently is.
What's the next?
Neptune is basically. When's the next stock market crash? Well, it might be in 2025. It might be near soon. Well, because Neptune, when it enters Aries, Neptune, I think, might be opposing, depending on which chart you look at. The US has a chart, right? Like each country, you can draw up a chart for each country. And when Neptune enters Aries, it'll be opposing the US's midhaven. The midhaven being the economy.
In 2008.
Right? Aries and Neptune in Aries being the sign of like war and stuff.
Interesting.
So it is very
The
interesting.
more you know.
Yeah. The more you know. So that's another thing. And then there's also the US, I think they're going to be coming up on their Uranus opposition as well. So it's all the outer planets are doing something in the US's natal chart.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
That should be interesting. But that's it. I'm going to end the live.
Well, thanks for your information, Lauren.
You're welcome.
Great.
We ended a little bit early, actually. So